pasture for your beef, or do you cut hay? Don't you?
Yeah,
cut
pasture
hay?
and I put up hay. Yeah.
Do you put up enough, or do you have to buy
Well,
in?
the way I always put up enough is that you sell off animals in order to make what you have put up enough. Yeah.
Right.
And
You
hope
adjust
to-
the demand
hope
with
to
a
sell,
supply.
sell hay to horses first. Yep.
Okay. Good morning. This is the second half of the morning session of Senate Natural Resources and Energy, and today is Friday, February 26th. The time is 10:41 a.m. So, committee, I just wanted to, we're adjourning early today because we have floor at 11:30, but I wanted to pause now that we've had it 24 hours with the bill in hand, and we've taken some additional testimony. There are things to address. I'm just trying to do some planning with everyone. Senator Campion mentioned to me education's interest in certification, and if there's a certification program, we have twice not been able to get director, I think he's a director, Mr. Ramsey from Agency of Education to talk to us about their contribution here. So I regret that he's been unavailable twice over because it would be good to hear about the high school curriculum piece. We heard Joe Teagarden saying that adult one is entirely separate. They might share a curriculum or not, but they run their own show and they have to make it cash flow. We don't know if the high schools yet have anything that is how equivalent it is. Can you earn a certificate while you're in high school? That means when you graduate, you're already on your way to helping yourself land a job with an HVAC or weatherization outfit. We don't know yet. So Senator Campion, just for some bill movement and timing planning,
Yeah.
Do you think your committee can look at it's actually a charge to the study group, and we're proposing to have a member of the education committee on the study group. Is that something you think you can look at without taking the bill?
Yeah, I think that's fine. We did run into this with we're getting a bill from Ag later today. And I'll have to check with Ledge Council. There was something that came up that we have to take bills in certain circumstances. So let me just loop back to them. I don't know, but we might indeed just need to take it in, have a quick walkthrough, and just sort of formalize it. But I'm not married to that. It's more. It could be a procedural kind of thing.
Right. Well, I know one of the awkwardnesses of the Senate is that other than for money committees, we're a single committee bill structure. So unless we overtly refer it to another committee, it just gets the check off for either does it affect finances, it affect probes, and then otherwise it's to the floor. So my only concern is I'm happy that education's interested in be looking. I just worry about if we have to go through the cycles of referring, receiving, voting back out, we could miss crossover.
No, sure, absolutely. So we can strategize about that.
Okay, so
we'll just figure out, maybe we can have Ellen just come down and take us through the bill, and that would be great. And we can maybe do that on Tuesday.
Okay. The other thing I was thinking is over break, maybe that I would like to actually check in with each of you over different things, but one of them would be maybe you and I can have the conversation that we can do something for this full committee, but we could jumpstart things by having a conversation, for instance, with Mr. Ramsey, and invite anyone who's interested to just fill in that blank a little bit. So we don't lose a day waiting for a witness again or something like that. Okay. Senator Westman, when you and I were chatting, there was about helping support clean heat choices. there's push and there's pull. There's creating an incentive in the form of removing any kind of tax liability for the purchase. And then there's outright incentives, the push part. Were you thinking, did you have any preferred solution in that area, or are you just wanting to have us put both on the table?
I think it's important to put on the table that if somebody's putting in a new heating system now, and that new heating system, they choose to use something that is emissions creating, you're probably going to have that heating system in for the next 20 years. And so it really does come down to a question of how do we push people into the right direction in heating system. It's very much like what Senator McDonald talks about with cars. You buy an emissions producing car, and it's going to be around for 9 years, and then somebody's going to buy it secondhand. And so the question is, that to me is separate from a fuel. We talk about fuels and how we can discourage the use of fuels, but if there's nothing to burn that fuel in, we're doing. So I would think that in some way, as any group that goes forward and looks at this issue, they ought to have a proposal around that.
Okay. All right. So my first thought of how to address that would be to revise the charge given to the working group to include that point. Any other thoughts on how we might do that? Does that sound like
I think that's the start. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so regard charge to working group. Got it. Thank you. Money. So appropriations. So I would, the numbers continue to evolve as different actors talk back and forth. So I'd like to better understand the 952 proposal we heard this morning, and just make sure that we vet those numbers. I'd love to build a budget for this into our bill, but I also have no desire to go down the hall until and actually Senator Westman will be down the hall, but until we vetted those numbers and we're confident that we've got the right balance in terms of the different efforts that are in there. It does sound to me as though what we heard this morning, which recognizes the need for incentives and workforce right now, is a step in the right direction. It's like making a stronger program into which more money can then flow. Okay, another piece that we've had conversations about and it's appropriation related. We heard about some transportation initiatives like Mileage Smart over at Capstone. And we've also talked about trying to get a start on addressing transportation emissions and costs. Are people interested in, it may be that Mileage Smart is covered now in the House T bill. I'd want to verify that. But so maybe everything's all set. But my sense was there was a real interest in the committee to address that, because as Senator McDonald reminded us, whatever, 90+% of the vehicles are still internal combustion engine. So attack that issue. Don't just focus on EVs. Am I
How does
paraphrasing?
Mileage Smart attack the reduction in fuel use?
They provide incentives for vehicles that are 40 mpg or greater.
New.
I think used and
So
new.
it hasn't attacked anything.
Well, I
It's
think
just that
that
different people drive the same vehicles that are available for sale. It's just different people drive them, but there's no net reduction in the use of fossil fuels. There's just been,
Right.
we've changed
So-
drivers.
So in other words, I hadn't really thought of it from that point of view, so I'm glad we're talking about it. In other words, customer A has something that gets 18 miles to the gallon. They go through Mileage Smart, they get into something that's 42 miles to the gallon, but their old vehicle gets picked up by customer B, and so it's still on the road.
Well, someone else that was, drives that same car doesn't drive it. It's just them.
Okay, well, so that's a good thing. The other proposal we heard from Linda McGinnis called,
Just so,
go ahead.
we're on the record, I disagree with Mark. I think it's important for, if there aren't enough electric vehicles out there to get everybody into an electric vehicle, because there's not enough there. If I'm taking somebody and moving it from a vehicle that's 12 miles to the gallon, and I get them into something that's more like 40, I've cut their emissions. And if there's a program out there, and right now Mileage Smart is in 2 community action agencies, not all 5. And if I have a program that is moving people along to more efficient vehicles, even if it's not exactly where we want to go, I've got a program to build on in the future that can continue to get better over time. And I'm taking a population that's moving them to something more efficient. I wish there were enough electric cars to move them all to electric, but if I can't do that, if I can help somebody economically into something more efficient and reduce their emissions over time, I think that's important.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
There are many reasons for doing the Drive Smart, and those are based on equity. Those are based on fairness. Perhaps if they were targeted towards people who commuted as opposed to people who don't have long commutes, that would be, helpful. But the way you reduce consumption of fossil fuels on the highways is you reduce the number of new cars that burn a lot of fossil fuels on the highways. That's where the reduction takes place. The rest is secondary or tertiary to the goal of getting those vehicles off the road. So, and fairness is
Senator-
always good.
Senator McCormick.
Okay, I'm a history major doing high finance off the top of my head here. But I think the point that Mark has made repeatedly is that the new car that is bought this year is the used car of 10 years from now. And it seems to me that part of the decision when you buy a new car is what is its resale value likely to be when you unload it. And if we can increase the demand for the fuel efficient cars and perhaps decrease the demand for the gas guzzlers, that would make the fuel efficient car more attractive when it's a new purchase. I'm just throwing, and I'm not sure I'm right about that. That's the first thought that comes to my mind. So I think, in other words, what I'm saying is I think Mark may actually be wrong about this particular one.
All right, I'm not sure how you got there, but, well,
Well, I
wrong
mean,
in what?
it's okay. It's law of supply and demand. If you increase the
Yeah.
demand, then you've relative to the supply, you increase the price, and that means that the person buying the new car is looking at a car that will sell for more when they decide to sell it.
Sure.
If you have made it, if you're expediting people buying the fuel efficient cars.
Well, the other presentation, so thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces here and a lot of hypotheticals that involve human behavior, which is really like the wild card in all this. Like people's personal preference is not entirely rational. That's my observation about cars. We also heard from Linda McGinnis about the program Replace Your Ride, and the governor's budget proposes $1.5 million there. And Replace Your Ride was kind of a modernized cash for clunkers, right? Like in that case, you get an extra incentive, and the vehicle, I believe, if my notes are right, that vehicle comes off the road. So you're not just passing it on to somebody else.
That reduces fossil fuel use. Yes.
Right. So you are shaping the fleet that way actively.
At the same time, someone else is buying a new gas guzzler.
Right. And if I were looking at those two programs side by side, Mileage Smart and Replace Your Ride, I'd say, okay, we don't need to make it into it. I don't know that we need to make it into a choice. It could be that we see, for instance, Ms. McGinnis actually said, Replace Your Ride could layer on top of Mileage Smart. So
I would think that they should be working together because the Replace Your Ride program doesn't come with any sort of counseling component that the community action agencies offer. And some of what we're doing here is we have to change people's attitudes. And so I think, I, in both cases, would like to push them along because they're moving in the right direction.
well, so I'm looking at the sheet that Dan Dickerson put together for us, and Replace Your Ride. Also, that $1.5 million includes $300K of startup money. So that's a fair amount of money to launch. Anyway, that might be low, that might be high. I don't know, but I'm just thinking about to what degree can we minimize startup costs and deliver the benefits to the customers. So maybe it involves further discussions about how those two programs might work together. The other point that Senator Westman mentioned was Mileage Smart is at 2 of the 5 community action agency programs. I'd be interested in learning more about, is there a potential to help that become the template for all 5?
So
like
I would just say to you too, that, from my point of view, I think a number of people testified to the fact that OEO does not have in its mission statement, it's all about helping families economically. And that they need to look at their mission statement and say, yes, we totally agree with helping people economically, but also a piece of that is they should have an eye towards reduction in emissions.
Okay.
And,
Thank you for bringing,
and asking them to take a look at that in this, I don't think would be a bad idea.
Okay. That could happen through the work group. I think they actually were agreeable to it. I wonder if that's something that we could just simply work on
Ask
language.
them.
Yeah, work on language between now and 10 days from now and just build it into, modify their mission
Yep.
statements in statute. Okay.
Yep.
So, so I'm putting that down as add to bill. Okay, great. Anything else, loose ends, other things we're talking about that ought to get addressed? Okay, so I know there's more to do. Vetting members, looking at getting the OEO mission statement, checking in with Senator Campion on making sure that education is addressed and any kind of new certification or modifying of certification, what's happening at the high schools, adding to the charge of the working group to address both the heating systems themselves as well as the fuels, both on the incentive side of the equation and looking at the tax side of the equation. Okay, so that's what I have on my list for whatever edits and related things for now on the bill. Is anyone, if anything else on anyone's mind? Okay. So
Do we have a plan on, do we have a plan for how much we're going to involve ourselves in or not involve ourselves in on transportation issues?
good question. I was trying to set up a meeting and with the chair and vice chair of transportation for today, but the vice chair was unavailable. So I've asked Carolyn Wesley to help us book a Zoom session next week, so we can have that conversation and see what the other committee is thinking. I don't really know what their thought is, pro or con, on the piece that we've currently built in. So we're trying to be respectful and move that piece along. So we'll see what their appetite is. They could either regard what we're doing as a boon or we're stepping on their toes, and I don't know which it is, or something else entirely. So we'll find
Okay.
out. The other thing is, if anyone wants to have a discussion about any of these things I'm mentioning, I'm always happy, especially in the Zoomiverse, to just include you in any kind of meeting that we're having if you want to jump in informally and participate in it. Otherwise, I feel like I'm pedaling this bicycle, and I'm going to keep pedaling my bicycle. And so I want to make sure that if there's something to do, I'm feeling like it's on my to-do list more than anybody else's. I'm always happy for the help along the way, and I appreciate, people have contributed a lot of thoughts and good ideas to what's already here. So, all right. If there's Senator McCormick.
I'll take you up on that invitation. Anything dealing with transportation, I'd like to participate in.
Okay, great, thank you. I'll let Carolyn Wesley know when we set something up to include you. Senator Westman, are you going to be available at all during the days, any of the days next week, do you think? Or
First thing in the morning and late in the afternoon would be best, and
Sure.
I can adjust my schedule. But
Okay.
I will have to. I have another job and I have to go to work.
Of course, I get it. I mean, I'm trying to ask respectfully here. And in terms of first thing in the morning, what's a good, say we need a half hour, what's a good time for us to start a meeting like that from your point of view?
Anytime after 6.
Okay.
Senator Bray, is this something you need all of us for? Because I have to roll if not, if it's just working on yours.
Are you going
Nope.
on vacation, Senator Campion?
No, I'm not. In fact, I'm looking at a pile of work right here. So I just want to, I appreciate working on the scheduling for next week. I'm just trying to get a sense of if we're done
Could you,
with policy discussions or not.
could you in doing your work, if you have any group things about answering emails, I think the rest of us all have emails that you could be helpful with.
I'm afraid I have the same situation all of you have.
Haven't you got an answer yet for all the teachers that you can't just send out to the rest of us and we can just put it out there? And
Right.
Teachers pension, that's,
yeah, that would be perfect.
okay. Well, I hate to keep you through the fully scheduled time, Senator Campion.
Well, I
but-
just want to, it's crunch time.
Yes. Okay, so transportation meeting, Senator McCormick's in. Senator Campion, if you don't have anything you need to chip in now, fine. I know you do have a lot going on in your committee, so
Thank you.
see you later. See you on the floor, 11:30.
Yeah.
Senator McCormick.
Thanks. I just wanted to take this opportunity to suggest to Ms. Tchaikovsky that she never play poker.
Yes, I know. I'm sorry.
That's why
Speaking
she's
of which,
such a,
can I jump in?
yes, please. You've been hearing
Have
us.
to ante up first.
I would just like to suggest, as the committee continues to review this bill, as well as others who are reviewing it, I have slight concerns that the charge of the study committee is very long. And it is proposed to be approximately a 5 to 6 month long study committee. So it seems like a lot potentially in that amount of time. And I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but it looks like a long list as someone
Are
who
you
is
the
writing all
lone
the words
staff
down.
this committee?
Right. Well, I noticed you had, thank you for that. It's a good reminder, it's like, let's be realistic about what we can get to. I reviewed the list, after you mentioned that to me and said, is there anything that I would just say, okay, see you later, take that off the to-do list. And Senator McDonald has mentioned transportation a couple times. Is this the right time and place to get involved in it? So I would say that to me is the thing where there's the biggest question mark, floating in terms of work. I would regret not doing something because it's also the largest source of expense and emissions. So, I'd like to get something rolling, but I'm guessing in the end that there'll be certain things we'll dig into a lot. Funding would be the most crucial. If it was a one task list, I think it would say funding. And if it was a 2-task list, it would say funding and workforce. If it's a 3-task list, it'd be funding, workforce, and delivery system, the counseling piece. So maybe one thing we can do is we either eliminate things or we prioritize at a first meeting of that group, for instance, and say, as time allows, we would take up the other things. But 1, 2, and 3 are really crucial to having a solid program plan. Anyone else?
You just made me come up with an analogy, Mr. Chair, that
Yeah.
I've bought a few things on with monthly payments, like automobile and a home. I've never bought anything on a balloon payment. Has anybody here done that? So when we move forward on this project without providing money, we are basically engaging in a practice that none of us has ever practices, which is I'll borrow the money and pay it all back at the very last month it's due. In 2050. So if you're buying something on time, you got to have a payment schedule. That's That's my worry here.
Yeah.
I'm just repeating it in a different way. Thanks for
Right.
indulging me.
Okay. Yeah, it's a concern, like the whole thing. We want people crossing a bridge, not walking off a plank. So, Senator McCormick, last word to you before we go to the floor.
Let me just say, I used a metaphor earlier regarding the second brave man. That is a gender exclusive phrase, and I apologize for it. The metaphor was Hollywood movies, and the Hollywood movies were gender exclusive, not me. And in fact, the great brave man movie of all time was High Noon, in which the surprise hero at the end is actually Grace Kelly.
Okay, there we go. We're ending on a high note. Or something. Okay, so anything else, Ms. Chakowski, as our counselor, guardian angel, on what did you guys just sign up for? Okay, so I thank you, and I will also follow up with you during town meeting. Are you in on town meeting week? Are you working? Sorry, this is going to could be a really silly question. Like, are you kidding? I'm working 16 hours a day all the way through town meeting.
Kind of sounds like I'm working next week.
Well, no, I mean, if you're off, I don't want to be bothering you. If you're around, then I would check in on some stuff and try to help us.
I'll be in.
Okay. Have things ready because we're going to come back with very little time. So, based on the whole thing of everyone likes to edit, no one likes to write, let's get some stuff written down based on what we did today. Okay, so, but I'll make every effort not to impinge on any kind of time off you're planning on. So I'll follow up with you. I do not want to, if you have planned time off, take it and we will survive. So everyone needs a break.
So, Mr. Chair, I'm hearing that during this town meeting break, we're actually have different Zoom things that are going to happen here. Is that correct?
So the only one that was asking the pro tem's office help for to sort of do it somewhat officially, so that, because it's tricky, is I've asked Carolyn Wesley to set up a meeting with transportation.
Let me know when that is.
Otherwise,
Yep. We have a joint assembly coming up also.
Post break, right?
That's post break.
Okay, I asked that yesterday and I must have misheard the answer.
Mr. Chairman, in
Yes,
terms
sir.
of scheduling, a lot of us have a lot of town meetings early in the week, and then the following weekend. I think late in the week will be a better time than early in the week.
Okay, so like you're thinking Wednesday, Thursday, not Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah, and actually, no, but now that I'm thinking of it, I think maybe I spoke too soon, because those early in the week are in the evening. Weekend days and then early in the evening. So probably any of those days during the day will probably be okay.
Sure. Have you been invited to many town meetings to participate via Zoom? Is that what's going on? You're going to be on kind of the Zoom tour?
I am never invited. I find out afterwards that the ones I didn't go to, they're offended that I snubbed them. And the ones that I did go to, they're offended that I tried to invade their town meeting with my political agenda.
Okay. Well, heads you win, tails you lose, or whatever.
I don't know who these people are who vote for me every 2 years, because it seems to me my constituents hate me, but I get
Go to town
reelected.
meeting.
Right.
I hear
Right.
from the ones who hate me.
Yeah, I didn't say that right. Heads I win, tails you lose. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Okay, so I'll keep that in mind and reach out to Carolyn. If anyone has anything